Please be seated.
Your Honor, before the jury comes in, the witness, at this point, I believe we're nearing a point in the defense presentation where this witness is going to be asked to opine on the origin of the taser and where it came from when we first see it in the Santana video. We object to that. We believe that is an opinion that is beyond the scope of his expertise. We think that is a factual question for the jury, and I just wanted to lodge that objection now under your doubt. And move in limine that he be prohibited from offering an opinion as to where the taser comes from. In his presentation, the one presentation that we were provided a few weeks ago, basically what the witness does is use a process of elimination, which is more argument than camera analysis or photographic. If they want to argue that in closing or whatever, that's one thing, but to put the weight of an opinion like that on an expert, we think is inappropriate.
All right, Mr. McKeon.
Yes, Your Honor. All he's simply doing is making observations based on his experience in scene recreation and the physical limitations associated with what we're seeing. So he's making an observation of where where people's hands are and what are in those hands. And all he's opining is that there seems to be only one place where the taser could have originated. And he's doing that not through speculation or subjective opinion, but you can physically see that three hands are tied up when the taser is in the air or near the ground. So that's his opinion, and it's based not on his subjective opinion, but on what he observes in the recreation.
And Your Honor, Mr. McCune's argument makes the point that I'm trying to make. What he just described is an issue of fact. And putting the import and the weight of an expert's opinion behind something that the jury can see for themselves or not is inappropriate. Especially when it's not. There's no special expertise needed to do a process of elimination, which is what Mr. McCune has just described. It's dangerous for the jury to hear an expert come to this conclusion when it's not based on matters of his expertise. It's based on his observation of a video, which they have just as much knowledge and skill to observe themselves.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Judge. I would just once again say that he is making these observations based on physical location of objects that we can see and the velocity of a taser that we can measure. And I don't think it debates the providence of the jury.
All right, I deny the motion in limine. I will listen to the testimony and rule based on any objections made.
Thank you, Judge.
If you'll bring the jury. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. So, Mr. Lucio, when we broke, we were talking about a camera matching angle you did when the two men were standing.
Yes.
Could we take a look at that?
Yep. You can publish. Is that okay? Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay, yeah, so this is a similar example to what we had before. So we have the two the character models put in place, and in the background we have we have the point cloud and then the image which is in the background. So if I shut off the point cloud, again you can see that we have this overlapping image. And again, this allows us to move out of this position. If we wanted to, we could move around to see what that looks like, or I can approach the two here. Actually, I'm going to change the background image again, just so it doesn't get confusing. All right.
Okay, could we get a screenshot of that, please?
Sure. Okay. How would you like me to label this one?
Let's just say standing up defense.
I'm sorry, standing up?
Defense.
Okay.
And could we get a measurement between those two people at their closest point? Not including the touching, obviously.
Okay. Oops. All right.
What is that measurement?
2.2 feet.
2.2
So
feet?
it's, I can put that into inches, maybe it's better. Yeah, 27 inches.
27 inches. Okay, and could you just, as we did before, just do a quick turn around those images with the camera? And one more screenshot there, please.
Okay. I'm going to hide this one. Okay.
Defense standing up too.
Okay.
Okay, and if we could go back to the photo that you had, there was a black object in the photo.
So you mean the match like this?
Yeah, back to, did we ask you to take a look at the taser projection?
Yes.
Could you step us through your analysis of the taser?
Yes, sure. Okay. For the taser, I was provided with a video that was from Mr. Fredericks, Mr. Grant Fredericks, who I believe testified here. And I'll bring it up. Okay. So I'm just going to frame by frame sort of cycle through this. So you may have seen this already, but I'll just go through it again. So I'm focusing on the taser and where it goes to its final rest position, which is sort of on the ground, right on the edge, the right edge there. Now in this stabilized video, it's been like trimmed a little bit, but in the full Santana video, the original Santana video, you can actually see more of the frame. So you can actually locate where it is. And I can pick those points off in the scan data and make an estimate as to where it is. So if you go back, you can actually follow it back right to, and it may be a little clear here, but you can see a dark object moving behind.
Mr. Lucio, there's
Yes.
a pointer up there. It might help if you could.
This here? Okay. Actually, can you use this? Nope, doesn't go on there. Nope. All right. So what I'm looking at is, back in this area, you'll see that as I scroll through, you'll see it's very clear when it's at the end, but as I start to move backwards, you'll see that the taser starts to become blurred. But you do see a dark object that's right behind and very low to, or right behind Officer Slager. So I'll start backwards. Sometimes it's useful to go the other way. So we're going back. So we can see the taser's tumbling, and it's off the ground. I mean, here we're getting the reflection off of the label that's up on the side, and so we can see actually it's doing a lot of moving around, rotation. And here as I move back, if I just do those frames back and forth, you can see that there's something moving there. Right? And it almost appears it's sort of low to the ground, but it may also be off the ground as well. And so it's definitely moving away and from behind Officer Slager, excuse me. And so really all I've done here is a couple of things. I've located where it is in its final rest position. That's really what I can do. And I can bring that up on the in the point cloud and take a measurement of it. Let me just go back here. All right, so this is the point where I've located the taser on the ground. And the measurement I had taken before, so I know it's about a little over 8.5 feet. And the time on the video is almost a second, so approximately 8.5, 9 feet a second. And the speed is really not so much what is important, but its position is important.
And tell us why the position is important.
Okay. First off, well, let me explain something. When we were looking at the camera from the Santana video at that match frame, I was talking to you before about how side-to-side movement is easier detected than front-to-back. So the taser, I can't really tell if it's coming from the outside of the left leg from Officer Tager, or if it's coming, let's say, for example, from the inside. It's very difficult to determine that. What I think we can say is that it looks like it's still tumbling or it's moving. You can see the blurring and the shadows appears to be changing. So now part of that is obviously the effect of the blurring, but later on we definitely see that it's tumbling. Like that's very evident. So the other thing is that we know that there were some projectiles fired at this part of the fence down in here. And so afterwards in the video, let me go back here a little bit. So if you look at Officer Slager's right leg, he takes a little step back.
And let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Can you tell whether that's a side step or a step back from this perspective?
Okay, I'm actually going to get to that in a minute. Okay, so he definitely moves his foot. If you look at it from this perspective and then goes back, there's definitely a backwards movement from the perspective of Mr. Santana. And then when I look at that let me back up. What's important here is that we know afterwards is that when he draws his gun, he fires in the direction of the fence as well. So if I look here, he's actually facing this way. So if you think about taking a step back and then,
Let me stop you there
Okay.
just for a moment. It looks like that fence is missing fencing back there. Is that fencing missing, or?
yeah, part of it wasn't all scanned or whatever, so there's this part here had some bullet impacts.
But the chain link fence itself was all intact?
Yes, this part here, there was, we had agreed to remove some of the objects that were there.
But there was a fence there?
There was a fence there, that's
Okay.
correct, yes. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that he's facing that direction. So if he steps back and he's moving in that direction, chances are that his step back was to and from that position. Okay, so in this direction, in the view that I currently have, the foot will go forward and back from there. So, of course, when you step back, there could be some inside movement. You could bring your foot more in or more out, for sure. But what's interesting there is the position. And the reason is that if we were to suggest that the taser was kicked, or that the back of the foot as he stepped back, he had knocked it back, it would actually go in this direction, right? He'd be moving back in this direction. It would end up here in the grass. If we look at it from this direction, he would have to have been stepping this way, right? If you're going to impart some kind of motion on an object, it goes in the direction that you first hit it. And so now we see it moving at a more oblique angle to where he was originally stepping back from. And so in terms of angles and positions, this would lead me to believe that he didn't just step back, and based on his step backwards, that caused the taser to go tumbling through on the floor or on the ground.
Okay, and could we get a screenshot of that, please?
Yeah, sure. Any particular one like this?
That angle, what, back the other way, square on behind Officer Slager.
I'll
Thank
try to
you.
show the
that-
fence as well. Is that okay?
That's good.
Okay.
Taser drop 1.
Okay.
Okay, and can you determine, could you determine what was in Officer Slager's hand at the, in his left hand from the photo?
Yeah, so in this image, when we go back here, this is about the clearest one we have. It appears pretty clear that he's holding Mr. Scott's right hand or wrist, although it's a little blurred.
Okay, and can you determine where his right hand is?
Right hand appears to be situated in a position that's right where the holster would be. And it's sort of an interesting point too, because at this frame, this following frame right here, you can still see his hand there. This is where we first see the taser appearing right behind him. And so if you were to suggest that it came from his right hand and he threw it down, but his hand is up this way, it would be a very odd way to drop a taser. And if you were to drop the taser from there, it certainly wouldn't hit and go 90 degrees and 9 feet backwards behind you. It certainly would fall and then maybe tumble a little bit. But I think it's pretty clear that the motion that we have and the distance that it's traveled and the amount of energy that it has to start tumbling wasn't just from dropping the taser that way.
And do we know, can we determine if there's anything in Mr. Scott's right hand?
In the video, and of course you have to look at the subsequent frames, but you can't see anything in these particular frames or even further down in his right hand. However, yeah.
What about in his left hand?
Yeah, in the left hand, we see that he has later on you can see that he has a cell phone. And so I think it's pretty clear that you can eliminate the two left hands, the left hand of Officer Slager and the left hand of Mr. Scott.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Liscio. Please answer any questions the solicitor might have.
are you?
Good morning.
And we met for the first time this morning, is that
Yes, that's correct.
right? And just so we have this record clear, you were the first one who used the word geeked out, right?
Yeah, it was me, okay.
And you have met Trey Talon,
Yes,
who's with SLED, correct?
correct.
And you know that he would love to have all of the presentation software that you have and to be able to do scene recreation for SLED, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they're not able to do that at this point, correct?
I don't know why, but they
They
could.
don't have all of the required or the necessary presentation software and things like that.
Actually, Trey's background is in 3D graphics
Oh, I
and
know
animation.
that. And that's why
And
he's dying to do it, isn't it?
yeah, but we actually spoke about this, and there's actually free software available where you could do this kind of thing.
But he was not able to do that in this case, or did not do that in this case.
I understand he did not do it, correct?
And you mentioned in your testimony that what you do is, and what you teach, is solving problems using 3D technology.
Correct.
And that is where we are moving in the future.
I think so, yes.
And, but one of the problems now, not just in this case, but in the other cases that you've had where you've testified with juries, is allowing the jury to manipulate those objects themselves when they deliberate and things like that, right?
Sure, yes.
And we haven't figured out how to do that yet.
Yeah, there are ways, but they're somewhat complicated, I'd say.
And the mouse that you're using to manipulate and to show, can you just show that to the jury?
Sure.
That's not a normal mouse that comes with the computer.
This is a 3D mouse. It is an option for people, but if I unplugged it, I could move around the scene without that mouse,
Okay.
using a standard mouse.
And so one of the obstacles with where we are in technology and courtrooms and things like that is using Faro information and then allowing a jury to use it as they wish.
If you're saying that I would expect the jury to do exactly what I'm doing, then I wouldn't expect that level of skill from them. Correct.
And, excuse me, so one of the things that we just demonstrated with Mr. McCune asking you for screenshots and my asking you for a screenshot was to get this into a format that they could take back and use to recall your testimony or to look at the images later on. Correct?
Okay, correct.
And we went from 3D to 2D when we did that.
Correct.
Okay. And you mentioned that you were given several things in order to prepare to do your demonstration and to prepare generally.
Correct.
And you actually prepared 2 reports. I'll show you State's Exhibit 260, which was your first draft, I believe. Is that right?
Correct, October
And October what?
23rd?
And then State's Exhibit 259.
Correct, and that was today, an
Today.
update, correct,
You gave the update today.
correct.
No, it's 259 and 260 were the other portions. Not all, no.
Just for identification of.
So the latest update was today, right?
Correct.
And in other cases that you've had using 3D technology, you've actually presented affidavits talking about how important it is in doing this kind of analysis to have time to review and study the work that goes into it. Right?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that again?
In other cases, you
Yeah.
have offered opinion, given affidavits regarding the importance of you as a person who does this, like Trey Talon or
Mhm.
whoever, the importance of you having time to analyze and study the work and the underlying data
Yes.
and the final product.
Okay, sure, yeah.
And because the final product is what's most important, right? I mean, what these people see is what's most important.
Well, yeah, that is important, but of course, the method and the way that you get there is also important, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But what you show this jury, to them, is what they need to make their decisions on, based on what you present.
Sure, yes.
And sometimes that takes months to study. Months for you to study.
It may.
And in your report, you outlined the number of things that you were given. Just asking you about that. You had the crime scene photographs from SLED.
Mm-hmm,
You had the autopsy and evidence photographs, correct?
yes,
The FBI reports and their enhanced video.
yes,
You had the scene measurements taken by SLED, correct?
yes.
Was that from the Pharaoh, or did you also have their crime scene report and their
I had both,
2D?
mapping or triangulation measurements,
Okay.
yes.
And you mentioned that you had discussions with Trey Talent. Have you had discussions with Al Brown? Big Al Brown,
No,
crime scene guy?
I don't know who that is.
Okay. All right. But you showed the jury a laser scanner. Can I just?
Yeah,
phone that
sure.
for a second? These you can buy anywhere.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I think so, yeah.
And you mentioned that different settings affect how the measurement's taken, right?
On that scanner I did, I said you can set things differently.
Like for front, back. In other words, whether it's
Oh.
measured from here or from here.
Right,
or
right,
from
right.
there or from
I
there or
understand.
from there.
Correct, yes, 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 I understand.
And whether or not you hold the scanner right here or you hold it right here, if you're a bigger person, or over here, it would affect the measurement,
Mhm,
right?
correct.
And so the measurements that were fed into this SLED data that you got and that you used for your points of reference is as good as the measurements that they took
Well,
and fed into.
I just want to make something clear, that I did put in the SLED measurements, but they were completely unrelated to what I was doing. So they're in there just for visualization, but I didn't use them for my reconstruction.
Because sorry.
That's right.
You use, for that, you use the Santana video and the Pharaoh, just the Pharaoh images, not the measurements.
The scan data, yes.
Okay. But when the Pharaoh that SLED did was also included the 2 cars at Advanced Auto, right? At the beginning of your presentation?
Yeah, so I had 2 versions of that,
Okay.
and so the first version did not, and then the second version more recently did.
And that was provided by SLED?
Correct,
And that was after they went back to the scene and put the cars in their places?
yes.
Okay. And you also, in addition to the FBI enhanced video, you had the Santana video itself, the original,
Yes,
or at least an
a
original
copy of the original.
That's been
And
verified and all of that. Okay. And you were provided a stabilized video by Grant Fredericks, is that right?
yes.
And have you worked with Mr. Fredericks before?
I've known of him before, but no, I don't think we've ever worked on a case before.
And how many times, Mr. Licio, would you say you've watched the Santana video, regardless of which version you had, the FBI version, his version?
I've lost track. I mean,
Dozens?
I think more than that, actually, yeah.
Because it's important for you to know what you have when you do your matching and you do your presentation. To know
Yes,
what you're looking for, to know the points to look for, correct?
yeah, yeah.
So when figuring out one for identification. In studying this video that you watched many, many, many times, if we could have those screens either match or off, who's controlling that? In States 261, which has been published to the jury from a timeline that we've created, you knew when looking at the Santana video and doing your camera match that you didn't need to look for anybody getting tased in the video. Because the last tase was before the video showed the two men on the ground. The last taser trigger pull.
Okay, I didn't do a full video analysis on what happened before or after. I was sort of very specific to the positions that I've shown here, so I wasn't asked to do any timing or anything like that.
But you watched the video dozens and dozens of times, right?
With the intent of doing the reconstruction, yes.
And you knew that the last time anybody heard a taser or a taser was recorded was at the very beginning of that video, before anybody stood up, correct?
Ma'am, honestly, I have not been following the taser deployments, the communications and stuff, so I'm not certain where that happened or that kind of information.
But it wouldn't be hard to figure that out with all of this equipment and technology, correct?
Well, you're talking about time, and I'm doing a 3D, a visual reconstruction, so they're kind of different. That's audio analysis. This is a photogrammetric method.
Well, but when looking at your photogrammetrics, one of the things that might be important, if it happened, would be the image of someone tasing someone else. That would be something that would be important, right?
Okay, yeah.
And you never saw that in the Santana video.
I had seen the Santana video sort of like leading up to the event, so yeah, there's a number of different things that happen.
And using all of your technology, you were never able to see an image of someone getting tased, whether it was Mr. Scott or Mr. Slager.
No, there's no clear video showing that somebody is getting tased, if that's what you're asking me.
And if the last taser trigger pull was before the two men are in focus on the ground, you wouldn't expect to see that, correct?
Yeah, the video, if it doesn't show it on the video, if it's not clear on the video, then you can't see it.
Now, if we could pull back up your presentation.
Reconstruction.
If you could go to the video part, not the, do you call that an animation, or what is that called?
No, it's not, they're just still images, but did you want to get to the,
I want to get to
Were
the
they-
Grant Fredericks.
oh, sorry, yeah,
quick
it's right
time
here.
part that you use.
Yes.
Okay, now, using QuickTime, I think the jury's heard a number of times, you can press the arrow
Yeah,
key.
that's what I'm doing, yes.
All right, so when you go, is it technically frame by frame when you hit the arrow key?
In this one, I'm not sure. I would have to verify that. But, yeah, like this, again, I didn't work on this one, so this is the one that Grant did.
So you aren't sure if the arrow clicks match up directly with the frame by frame?
Yeah, I can't, I haven't verified that.
Okay, well, if you could click back to the position you had the two men in where Mr. Scott has his right hand open.
This
Right
one here?
there?
Yes.
Okay. Go backwards a frame, or a click. Go backwards another click. What's in Officer Slager's left hand at that point?
Again, at this point, the video isn't really clear enough to say what or where, his hand is.
And what is in his right hand, Officer Slager's right hand at that point?
Again, this video, it's too blurred to make out any of the hands and what they might be holding
At that point.
at this point.
And if we move forward, come into view there?
Yes?
Okay. And you mentioned that Mr. Scott has a cell phone in his hand,
Correct.
and I'm going to show the jury State's Exhibit 203. You knew that there was a cell phone in Mr. Scott's left hand, based on the work of other folks as well, correct?
Actually, in the Santana video,
You can
Yeah.
make it out.
you can see it quite clearly.
And what's previously been identified as Mr. Scott's cell phone your position regarding his ability to do anything with the taser in that left hand, that battery, right?
Mhm.
Okay. In his left hand, and again, I'm not to scale to Walter Scott,
Right,
probably,
right.
correct? But your process of elimination is that Mr. Scott wouldn't have been able to really hold the taser well with that hand and toss it or whatever.
What I'm suggesting is it wasn't likely. Right.
Wasn't likely, but it could
I didn't
be
say it
possible.
wasn't possible. What I said, it wasn't likely.
I got you.
Yeah.
But through your process of elimination. So, can you tell in the video that you've viewed a number of times when it was that Walter Scott, in deciding to go after Officer Slager with the taser, that he would pick up his phone from the yellow brick road that his mom is on and take it with it?
I didn't look at that.
You don't know where and when he picked it up, or if he ever dropped it, do you?
I understood that he did, but that wasn't part of my analysis.
There's nowhere on that video where you see that the phone was dropped, correct?
I think you're correct.
And it would be possible to break the glass of a phone with it in your hand just by jamming it on the asphalt, wouldn't it?
I would agree, yep.
Or you could drop it and break it, right?
Mhm. Yes,
And we don't know which happened.
correct.
You don't know which happened.
I don't know which happened.
Now, so in your analysis of this Grant Frederick's video, the camera on the bottom says 000. Is that?
No, it's, I think it might be because I'm just cycling through it. I think,
Okay,
let's see.
I don't necessarily need it, I just want to.
Yeah, if I hit play, then it, sorry, if I hit play, then it goes.
Okay, well, can you take us back to that point where we just were?
Yep.
Okay, at that point, where is the taser?
In the next frame is where you first see it. So in this one previous, it's difficult to say where it is in this one because it's sort of either is masked or it's blurred. But this is where we first see it in the following frame.
And I believe when you testified earlier, if I'm in Officer Slager's position,
Mhm.
you testified that it would, again, you used a process of elimination, but it would be difficult to tell from this blurry video whether the taser traveled to the left of Officer Slager or between his legs.
Correct.
But you've eliminated it traveling on the far side of his body.
I have not, although I said the middle of the legs, it could potentially be on the other side as well. So I can't say where it is exactly.
And your process of elimination has led you to believe and to conclude and to testify before this jury that the taser was thrown.
I believe that the taser was not launched or kicked back simply because of the direction, the speed, and the amount of energy that it had to tumble.
Let's back up a few clicks.
To see the taser?
Just back up.
The other way? Sorry.
Keep going. Okay. Go forward a couple clicks.
Mhm.
Where are Officer Slager's feet in that photo? You can't tell?
In this one, I can't tell, but Of course, if we're only moving a couple of frames ahead, he's not very far from where he is.
And where are Mr. Scott's feet in that photo?
Again, I can't see exactly.
So you can't tell where anybody's feet are before the taser comes into view?
I couldn't measure it, no.
Okay. And so you have, in your mind, eliminated every possibility from Mr. Scott's 2 feet to Mr. Slager's 2 feet to Mr. Scott's left hand and Mr. Slager's right hand, leaving only the possibility, and Mr. Slager's left hand, the only possibility in your mind is that the taser was somehow thrown by Mr. Scott frames earlier, correct?
No, what I'm suggesting is that if you look at the position of where the taser is, its motion, if you look at the position of Officer Slager and where he's pointing to or where he's directing his fire to, if he had stepped back and kicked it, it would have gone in a different direction. And so if he had thrown it with his hand, then I think it has to be physically consistent. So if somebody throws a taser down, I would have expected at that point to see Officer Slager's hand down, in a down position or something to that effect, not with his elbow up. So there are other possibilities. For example, it could be that you can't eliminate other things that maybe Mr. Scott did, but I would say that it's the most likely, or at least the physical evidence points back to it being thrown.
Your Honor, we offer states 262, I believe, without objection.
Submitted.
And this is actually one of the screenshots that you provided me either last night or this morning.
Yes, okay.
It is?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And this is what you use to calculate your measurements?
The reconstruction, yes.
And this is what you use to conduct your process of elimination, right? Not that single one, but that process.
Yes, I'm using the 3D reconstruction on the whole to basically look at where the taser landed and possibly where it could have come from, considering the positions of the other people there.
And you would agree, Mr. Licio, that in using computer models and all of this technology, that all sorts of settings can have an effect?
With any reconstruction, with any work that you do, there can be variables there. Yes, absolutely.
asked to conduct a measurement of the first shot fired. Is that right?
Yes, just recently, yes.
And that measurement from core to core was
18
or
feet,
so?
correct.
And that was the only measurement during the shooting that you were asked to conduct, right?
I also did like muzzle to target, and I also did like toe to heel, but yeah,
And they all vary just depending on the length of the officer's arm or where his foot was. But
correct,
core to core was 18 feet.
correct.
So you are not disputing the measurement of shot 2 being at about 20 feet approximately.
I didn't do the second shot, so the subsequent shots I honestly can't comment on.
So you don't dispute 23.8 for the third shot,
I can't comment on it,
and you can't comment on 26 feet for the fourth shot.
correct,
Can't comment on 29 feet for the fifth shot.
correct,
Can't comment on 31 feet for the sixth shot.
correct.
Can't comment on 34.9 feet for the seventh shot, can you?
Correct.
And let me ask you this, with all of your technology, did you do a camera match of Walter Scott's position between the pause, between the seventh shot, as Officer Slager takes aim for that eighth shot? Did you do a camera match of Walter Scott's body in that position?
No.
And you would agree that with technology and with using cameras, you mentioned that settings can make a difference on what's perceived, correct?
Yes.
And even Santana's video, depending on if you had, his actual phone versus a model just like it, there might be a setting or something that makes a little bit of a difference, correct?
Correct.
And the camera angles in your business can be extremely misleading, can they not? The angle of a camera.
You mean like where it's placed
Yeah.
versus, yeah, I mean, it can give a different impression, for sure.
Right. And so when we're talking about distances, the tried and true is the best way to tell what a distance looks like, is it not?
Depends what you're measuring, but,
Well, if you're measuring the distance between two people,
well, if you can pull a tape between two things and it's simple measurement, then yeah, a tape measure works just fine.
all right, well, why don't you step down and help me do that?
Sure.
And I believe your end gets to tell. So if you could just walk off the 18 feet that you measured between Mr. Scott okay, and can you turn around and face turn around the other way? That's 18 feet? Hold up, 1 second. Can you walk off 20 feet? Show us what that looks like. Can you walk off 23 feet? Can you walk off 26 feet? Can you walk off 29 feet? Can you walk off 31 feet? Can you walk off 34 feet? Okay. And that is about 3 feet per increment, approximately, correct? Those that I just called out to you, about 3 feet. So let's take another 3 feet after the 34, and let's go to 37 feet. And it doesn't take technology to see that, correct? And this is real life. 37 feet in real life. based on what you could see and what you could hear and watching that Santana video over and over again, could you time out the cadence of the shots? Or in other words, not the distance of the shots in time, in feet, but in time?
Again, I know that you can hear them in the video, but I didn't do any analysis like that at all.
So you aren't disputing what Grant Fredericks found to be 1.49 seconds from the draw, and what Bill Williams, or excuse me, Grant Fredericks was 1.5 seconds from the draw to the shot, and Bill Williams 1.49 seconds from the draw to the shot. You don't have any opinion?
I don't have any opinion on that.
That's all, Your Honor.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
And Mr. Licio, you did measure the distance between Mr. Scott and Officer Slager when they were standing and touching, correct?
That's correct.
And that distance was what?
27 inches.
Could you step down here, please? Could you hold this while I mark off 27 inches? Put that on the ground. Now, this was 27 inches toe to toe. Mr. Slager's, Officer Slager's right arm is reaching for the holster. Yes. And 27 inches is 27 inches, right? Yes. And 1.5 seconds is 1.5 seconds, right? Yes. No further questions.
Solicitor?
Mr. Felicio,
Yes,
the devil's in the details, isn't it?
always, sure.
That's all.
All right, thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're 9 minutes past noon, but that's pretty close, all things considered. We're going to break until 9 Monday morning, so we have a good space and time between now and then to be away from this case. It's important, however, for you to remember that you're still under oath with regard to this case, and during the course of Thanksgiving and beyond this weekend, inquiring minds will certainly want to know about what you've been up to and all that, but you must resist. You owe it to your fellow jurors and your oath of office and to the court to decide this case solely based on the evidence presented in this courtroom, applying the law as the court will give it to you. You must deliberate only with your fellow jurors, not deliberate with family and friends and others. And you must rely on your being a juror and hearing the testimony and not reviewing someone else's rendition of things who may be as focused as you are or may be totally uninformed, and writing commentary and articles and the like and posting things on the internet. So you're to resist from being exposed to any of those things and decide the case solely based on what's presented in the courtroom. So I trust that you you all will continue to do as I believe you've done. You've certainly been attentive and have been a focused jury, and I certainly appreciate it. Everyone appreciates it. And let's continue this march toward the end of this case and come back Monday morning at what time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock, Monday morning. Have a happy Thanksgiving. All right, if everyone will be seated for a little bit. With regard to exhibits or anything of that nature, any dispute about anything?
Your Honor, I think the solicitor and I have agreed that the screen captures that were taken today are going to be provided. We're going to print them out, and that they have been, I think, by agreement with the court and the solicitor, admitted for identification or publication. In other words, we publish that. We'll provide the solicitor all the screenshots. We'll get together and see if we can agree to anything that should be admitted into evidence. And if we can, we'll have recordings of screenshots that are for identification for the record.
All right, well, go ahead.
Well, this trial has been a little bit different than others I've done about what's in and what's in for ID and what's in evidence, and so I just don't want to, my ignorance of how the court wants to term things. The bottom line is.
Well, let me say this, nothing is admitted unless I say it's admitted.
Yes, sir.
And I rule on every exhibit, and if there's an agreement, then I admit without objection. Otherwise, I admit based on what I hear.
We've just been using the phrase admitted for ID, and so in my prior trials, admitted means admitted, or for ID means for ID, and so that's my confusion.
Yeah, I haven't heard the phrase in the trial admitted for ID. I've heard it marked for identification.
Right, and that's what I'm accustomed to.
So
I
if it's
think-
marked for identification, it's not an evidence. It's only an evidence when the court admits it.
I think there have been some times that some of us have confused that or mixed that up. But in any event, regarding this issue, my understanding is that Mr. McCune and I will get together and look at what the screen captures look like. If there is an objection on my part, it won't be because of authenticity that we need this witness back. It may be on some other grounds, but we'll discuss that over the break and get with you Monday morning on that issue. The other thing that we still have outstanding that doesn't necessarily need to be resolved immediately is I had wanted to offer State's Exhibit 253, which is digital copies of the state's exhibits, photographs, excluding the coroner's photographs, because we didn't do that during our case. If I need to call a rebuttal witness based on some of the cross-examination, I can do that. But they still haven't decided if they're in agreement with the digital copies coming in, and that's
Right.
outstanding.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Judge, and we will have an answer for the solicitor. We've just been, as you know, sort of the day-to-day, it's rather consuming, and we'd be happy to sit down and we'll have an answer for the solicitor before.
Do you have a copy of that for the court to review? Or can you get a copy?
I can give you this copy. This is the one that's marked.
Well, I don't want anything that the court reporter is in custody of.
Okay, then, sure, I can get you one. I don't know if I can do it before you leave, but the jury has seen all of these. All of these have been published. Just rather than the jury having only the paper copy, which is not as crisp as the digital copy. we thought
Okay,
we
well,
were-
they'll have an answer Monday. We'll wait for that. And don't worry about giving it to me.
Thank you, Judge.
Yes, sir.
And then the final item, which I don't think we have to spend a whole lot of time on, but which the courts may want to marinate on over the weekend, is now we've had presentation from two audiovisual experts. We've had a presentation from the state's Pharaoh person. We've had a presentation from the defense's Pharaoh person regarding the condition and the measurements of the scene. some of the vegetation, some of the things aren't exactly in place as they were at the time. All the reference points that were used are in place. There is an additional fence, but the fence is still in place, the gate is still in place. The distances from Advanced Auto through the Yellow Brick Road have not changed. We think because of the nature of the case, it may help the jury to go out, look with their own eyes, see from their own perspective, understand what occurred at that point, and we would just like the court to consider that as it's having its cranberry and turkey. I don't think we need to argue it right now, but we'd be happy to argue it on Monday.
Yeah, what says the state?
Your Honor, I know in my career since leaving the feds and coming to the state in 2001, in criminal court at least, I don't know about what y'all do in the common pleas, but there is no criminal jury that has seen more of a crime scene than this jury. And they have had 360 views, they've had aerial views, they've had photographs. I believe a jury view is unnecessary. We have now been in trial for a long time. I think the time that will be spent and the expense that will be spent is just not worth it in this case with all the information this jury has.
And if you may, Your Honor, I believe unfortunately the statute allows for the defense to pay for the jury view if that were granted, and it's a burden we're willing to bear. And the extra time spent, if it would help the jury decide this case fairly, pales in comparison to the time that Mr. Slager faces, which is life in prison for the charge.
Well, I have done many jury views, and some I've accompanied the jury, and some they've gone under supervision by court officials who've taken an oath to safely take them there and let them look and bring them back without any communications with them, et cetera. So I'm not adverse to a jury view. Though the state makes an interesting argument as to the views that the jury has already seen in this case. I will marinate on it as I have my turkey at all. But if we do a jury view, it would likely come at the close of the evidence, when you all are asking for an hour or 2 hours or whatever to organize and collect your thoughts and proceed to closing arguments. It would likely be done at a time that would not delay the jury.
I would just ask.
Or delay the case itself.
Sure.
Yes.
I would just ask, Your Honor, that if you are inclined to do that, that you yourself take a look at the scene as it is now, because it is quite different than it was then, and that causes us additional concern.
All right. You want the court to have a jury view before
Yes.
deciding the jury view?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
And Judge, we would once again leave that to your discretion.
All righty. What else do we have today?
The only other thing I have is just an article I'd like to hand up, a law review article regarding some legal issues we'll face next week. But I don't think there's anything else we need to cover today.
And how many days of testimony do we anticipate next week?
Your Honor, I think, and we're trying to be conservative, or actually we're trying to, a maximum of 3 days, Your Honor, just depending on.
All right. Well, that would place argument and charge on the 4th day if you take that maximum.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, I'll say this about it. Witnesses in next week, we certainly could have accomplished more this week if witnesses were here and in place. But at the same time, I think we did quite well. But next week, witnesses need to be here and ready to go.
And, Your Honor, we have our witnesses lined up for next week. There were some logistical issues with the holiday, but and we did switch some people around, but there will be no breaks in the action as far as we're concerned.
All right. Very good. Well, we'll receive the article. Have you shown it to the other side?
Yeah, I gave them the, yes, sir, I'm sorry. I gave
Okay.
them the copy.
Hope everyone will have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see each other again Monday morning, hopefully.